I have gone through every single speed reading video there is. I've taken online courses on speed reading, and I'm going to tell you that you don't need to, because everything that you need to know can be compounded into one video, and that's going to be this video here. And I'm going to share with you some of the top tips to increase your reading speed. So let's go. So I have no doubt that these tips will work, but what I need from you is to prove it to yourself. So to do this, you'll need to find what your base reading speed is, or your words per minute. Find a book that you're reading and read for 2 minutes straight. After 2 minutes, stop the timer and count the amount of lines that you have read and average the amount of words per line. Then you're going to multiply this together and you're going to divide it by 2, and this is your words per minute, or your reading speed. And this is going to be something that you're going to constantly refer back to see how much improvement you've made. When you start implementing some of these techniques, you just do the test again and you'll see how much you've improved. And lastly, before we get on to the tips, visit my blog for the full breakdown of speed reading techniques, because there's a little bit that you won't find here, and it's good to bookmark it so that whenever you feel that you need a refresher on some techniques, you can come back to it at any time. So what should you be doing while speed reading? I mean, physically, what should you be doing? There is a little bit of physical activity involved, and it involves this. A pointer. What a pointer does is it helps pull your eyes across the page at a slightly faster than comfortable pace. Our eyes cannot move smoothly from one place to another. They sort of jump around a little bit, and especially while reading, your eyes have a tendency to double back on what you've already read. This is called saccadic eye movement, and can be demonstrated by this picture here. A pointer helps combat this, and it will pull your eyes across, preventing any unnecessary eye movement. Next, what you're going to physically be doing with the pointer is indenting, and this is going to be putting your peripheral vision to use. With your peripheral vision, you don't need to directly look at a word in order to read it. When you look at a word, your peripheral vision will pick up the words to the side. So instead of starting at the beginning of every single line, you're going to start a few centimeters in from the margin. Your peripheral vision will pick up anything that your pointer doesn't get to. So when you start a few centimeters in, your peripheral vision will pick up those words to the side, and you pull your pointer across, and you don't need to go to the very end because your peripheral vision will pick up those words there, and then you go to the next line and you start again. All of these small techniques will help increase your reading speed dramatically, and that's how to put your peripheral vision to use with a pointer. Now let's talk about the environment. So I believe it's important to start a ritual before reading. A ritual is something that you do physically to get your mind to switch gears into reading mode. This will help increase your comprehension and your reading speed, and will make it more enjoyable as well. A ritual could be anything from making a hot drink before you start reading, or just getting into your favorite chair. Anything that you do physically will help switch your mind into reading mode. The more that you reinforce this ritual, then the stronger it becomes, and the more focused you will be during your reading sessions. Now then, distractions. One of the things that will pull your focus out of your reading time. You want to minimize distractions as much as you can. The more time that you spend getting distracted, the less time you're going to spend reading. And this can be as simple as just getting to a quiet place in your house away from everyone else. A pair of noise-cancelling headphones will do wonders for you. Alternatively, you can use normal headphones but put on some white noise or some gentle rainforest sounds. Whatever soundproofing thing you want to do, it's important to stop the external world from coming in and from pulling your focus from what you're doing. Because remember, the more that you get distracted, the less time you're going to spend reading. So you're probably not going to like this one because it feels like it's cheating. And I guess you sort of are cheating. But you're allowed to skip parts of the book. You can skip sentences, phrases, paragraphs, even chapters if you want. Remember, this is your reading time. It's supposed to be enjoyable for you, and you're supposed to get as much out of it as possible. Now, let me give you some examples of obvious times where you should be skipping. Let's say you're reading and the author starts talking about Pavlovian conditioning and how that came about. If you're already aware of this and you know about the bells and the salivating dogs, then you don't need to read all about Pavlovian conditioning again because you already know the story, in which case, just skip it. you're not going to learn anything, you're not going to miss out, and this is difficult to do, I know, because you'll be struck by FOMO, or the fear of missing out. And that's a hard thing to get past, but I can guarantee you that you will not miss anything. So here's a personal example of when I chose to skip ahead during one of my reading sessions. So I got to this part here, and I realized he was talking about scuba diving and the safety around it. Now, I've done lots of scuba diving in the past, and I'm fully aware of how all of this works. I skipped ahead, I saw him talking about adjusting buoyancy and a few other keywords, and what I realized was I knew everything that he was going to tell me in this paragraph. And so instead of reading something that I already knew, I decided to skip ahead and see what the main point of him bringing up safety in scuba diving was. And when you finally get to the end of the book, feel free to just skip the acknowledgements part. There's really nothing to be gained from this. So remember, don't feel compelled to read absolutely everything that the author has given you. This is your reading experience. You're allowed to skip things if you'd like, and I highly encourage that, actually. And now my last point on skipping words, and this will be a great segue into the next point, is you can skip groups of words. When you come across the words the United States of America, you've seen this together a million times. You don't need to sound out in your head the United States of America. Your mind sort of instinctively knows what's being said without you actually having to physically read every word. So when you see these common phrases, you can skip ahead and your mind will be able to interpret what you just read without having to actually read it. And this brings me to my last part on speed reading, which is the removal of subvocalization. So subvocalization is that little voice that you get in your head when you read the United States of America. It's that voice which repeats every word that you go past. And it's possible to remove this. What you should do is start with small phrases and sentences that you're already familiar with, and then build up from there. At first, you may only be able to do the United States of America, or the Statue of Liberty, or any other common phrases like that. But when you see them, try not to read it out loud in your mind, and you'll be able to absorb the information without actually having to read it. From there, you might be able to increase it so that you start reading sentences without having that little voice in your mind saying every single word. And from sentences, you'll be able to do paragraphs and then pages and maybe even chapters of you just absolutely breezing through it. If you can get to this stage, you'll be able to read basically as fast as your pointer allows you to go. And just like with anything, it takes practice, which is why I've asked you to bookmark my blog post and to come back to it as often as you need to. It's also why I asked you to record what your words per minute was, so that you have something to refer back to, so that you can see the improvement over time. And here's something a little bit extra. It's not quite to do with speed reading per se, but it is very important. It's in fact the entire point of reading, and that's how to remember things that you have read. One of the best ways to remember things is to write down things that you find interesting. So when you come across something that you're reading and you want to remember it, write it down in your own words and you can refer back to it whenever you like. An added advantage of writing down absolutely everything that you've written is that you won't have to reread the entire book again. You've already written down what you find interesting in here. You can just refer back to your notes. There's no need to go through an entire process of reading all of this. Another very easy and very efficient way to remember what you've read is to just explain what it is that you've learned. Now, my mind sort of does this automatically. As soon as I learn something new, I'm transported to a conversation with someone else in my head, and I'm explaining this concept to them as if they've never heard of it before. I'm giving them examples and how it relates to their life, and I'm just rewording it and reinterpreting it and re-explaining it in my own words to someone else. And all of this, just reiterating information, can help you understand it more. The more that you re-explain something, and the more that you think about it, the more likely it is that you will remember it. And this can be done, again, by either writing it down, explaining it in your head to someone, or better yet, finding someone actually to explain it to. And all of this will just help you remember what it is that you've read, which essentially is the most important thing about reading, isn't it? Another thing that people can do is to highlight passages in books, or to write notes in the margin. Me personally, I like my books to be as pristine as possible, and I wouldn't dream of doing that to any of my books, but it is something that people like to do. However, I do feel that there is an advantage to rewriting things in your own words. I feel that you have a better understanding of concepts when you do that rather than just highlighting or writing things out verbatim. Anyway, I hope that you have enjoyed these speed reading tips. Remember to check out my blog post, bookmark that, and come back to it often. I would love to hear the improvements that you have made on your speed reading. If you've found this helpful, then please give me a like and everything. Visit my blog for more helpful tips in your life. And remember to use your pointer. See ya.